Hello, what is happening? And welcome to the Anfield Talk podcast. My name is Paddy, your somewhat ad hoc host. We're having somewhat of issues with Mike in a minute, but hopefully he'll sort himself out. It looks as though he is. I think he'll be on his phone. But I'll finish the intros for now. We're joined by Craig. How are you, mate? You looking forward to the weekend?
Yes, certainly am, and it's our first game for a long, long time. It feels. We've only had one game this calendar year against QPR in the FA Cup, so it's good to be back to Premier League action. And yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed, repeat of last season's result. Not the 9-0, not the 9-0. Don't want that one, but the 1-0 win at Dean Court last year.
Yeah, the one that we absolutely were just absolutely dreadful in. Mo, how are we feeling towards the weekend?
I'm good, thank you. And I was speaking to Craig off air about how we both feel towards the game, but I'm feeling quite confident also. I know he's going to explain why he feels the same also, so it should be a good show.
Good lad, right? Mike, over to you, pal.
Well, how are we, boys? Yeah, listen, I can hear you all properly now. So, Paddy, thank you for covering me. Mo, Craig, nice to see you, lads. Now, there's a lot of things we want to get into here. I'm sure Mo and Craig will pick up where they were with the conversation before. But, Craig, I just want to start on the season you're having so far. So, you've got an informed Solanke, an informed Tavernier, Cliver playing fantastically well. As best I've seen him play for a fair few years now. So, from your perspective, you said 12th in the league, you get with a game in hand as well, 9 points clear of the relegation zone. How has this season been for you, and how are you as a Bournemouth fan sort of enjoying this season?
Wow, it's been an interesting season so far, to be fair. So, of course, Gary O'Neill was sacked. I felt quite harshly during the summer. Now, Gary did the basics, what I would say. It wasn't spectacular football. It wasn't pretty football, but it was effective football. It got us results. Of course, that 1-0 win at Dean Court against Liverpool. We won at Spurs. The results we were getting were decent. We were getting some decent results. And I was surprised that we sacked him. Iriola, though, and to be honest, it happened literally the same day. If I remember correctly, I think it was the same day actually. And it was like, right, okay, I understand why they've made this change now. Now, if anybody watches Spanish football, Rayo Vallecano are a very, very small team, probably a similar size to ourselves. And Iriola beat Barcelona, he beat Real Madrid. He got them at one point into the Champions League places. No, they didn't stay there, but the work he did there was fantastic. And I thought, right, okay, it makes sense now. It was a case of make that change or lose out on somebody who is a really, really good manager on paper. So we started the season, couple of draws. We drew against Chelsea, we drew against West Ham, was beaten by Spurs at home. Nothing really to be embarrassed about. The performance was decent enough. And then it kind of started to slide off a cliff. And what I mean by that is Iriola couldn't seem to get a win. We was playing this really attractive football. We was passing the ball around. We were making mistakes at the back. And there's three games that really, you know, um, hint to me. Well, four games really that jumped out to me and made me think he's not the right man for the job. Now, I'm quite infamous for making a prediction around about this sort of time that Bill Foley was going to dispose of Iriola, and I think he come very, very close to losing the job because Bill Foley for the game against Burnley was there. But if we rewind it back, the four games I mean, so Brighton away, we was 1-0 up. We was playing well. A silly mistake at the back, you know, got them their equaliser. Now, one thing he does, and you'll notice this, if he does this against Liverpool, he did it against Manchester United, is from kickoff, we'll get the ball straight in to, the far right hand corner. He did that against Brighton, but from our own kickoff, 16 seconds later, the ball was in the back of our own net. And I thought, it's not the start. We haven't got the players of an Arsenal or a Man City, because that seems to be the sort of style that he was trying to replicate. Arsenal then come to town. They absolutely tore us apart. We was playing the same style as them, but they were, let's be honest, they've got better players all round, like Liverpool have, like Man City have. So they tore us to shreds. And then we ended up visiting your dear neighbours. I don't know what you want me to call them.
You can call them anything as long as it's not a swear word, mate. We'll let you off.
Cheats, the horrible toffee cheats.
Yeah, just they're financial fiddlers, worse than City. No, obviously.
So we ended up visiting Goodison Park, and if I pick out some of the worst performances two of the worst performances that we've ever had in the Premier League, it has to be that 9-0 thrashing by yourselves at Anfield and that game, because Everton were rubbish themselves. They were not. They're not the start. They weren't playing the way they have been recently. They were poor, but we were making mistakes at the back. We didn't really know what we was doing. It just seemed. They just seemed clueless. They seemed like they couldn't adapt to this style. The players, and I thought, well, what he's got to do is he's either got to take it back to basics, what Gary O'Neill was doing. It might not be his style, but it will get results. Or the club have got to make a change. And then we played Wolves at home, managed by Gary O'Neill. Stupid mistake at the back, got beat 2-1. And I said, that is it. That's got to be the final straw. And then we come to the Burnley game, and Bill Foley was there. We was lucky. We got a 2-1 win. And it was only through VAR and a 7-minute wait, that I think really kept Iriola in the job. If that had gone against him,
you think that would have been it?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Jay Rodriguez slid the ball. To be honest, it was a good goal. It was a good goal. It was just a touch offside, and if that had counted, I don't think Iriola would have stayed in the job. And then everything just turned around, and I know the reason why it turned around, and I'll explain. So we was playing this passing football. We haven't left that. What we have gone is we've gone more direct. So we will pass with some sort of intent. We're not passing for the sake of passing. We're not passing to play teams off the park. We're passing, making moves, and with that intent. And that has to be through Marcus Tavernier. Cliver is in the form of his life. He's been fantastic. Solanke's been scoring goals for fun. Somebody you haven't mentioned, who unfortunately won't be playing, as he is playing for Ghana in the African Cup of Nations, is Anton Semenyo, a signing from Bristol City. He's been outstanding. Alex Scott has come back into the reckoning. He's been very, very good. So we've had our problems. We've had our injury problems. But I think it's the way he's just changed the whole style. He's gone more direct. He's now got his assistant with him as well, which is good. So I think that's where the difference is. And, by all the best result of the season, is that 3-0 win at Old Trafford, without a shadow of a doubt.
Unbelievable performance, I will say. I watched that game. Whenever I can, I watch United. For some reason, I'm pretty confident they'll lose. So when I watched the Bournemouth game, it was. I thought you played very well. Just you talk about passing with intent. You never looked to pass sideways or control the game. It was very much you controlled the game off the ball.
Yeah.
And the way you would press, you knew they were going to play out from the back. The pressure you put on that back four was absolutely fantastic. So I just want to move on to just the other side of the other side of things for you. So. More focused on the Liverpool game, and I'm sure Paddy and Mo will have their own comments on this as well. When we played you this season, most recently with 2-1, Nunes obviously got quite a wonderful goal, which Liverpool fans, including myself, rode for quite a while because Nunes, it's hit and miss with him. I don't know if you're aware of that, but
yes.
But that game in particular, when you look at that game, Do you feel you were unlucky in that game at all, or do you feel like that was a fair result? What were your thoughts when coming away from that?
I think, being realistic, I think it was a fair result. It could have gone either way. I don't think, and I think Liverpool fans would probably agree, that if Bournemouth had won that game, it would have been a fair result. I think the draw, which you can't really get in a cup game, would have been, if it was a Premier League game, you would have said draw, fair result. Both teams were very much at it. I think the conditions had a lot to play in it. It was a terrible, wet, windy night down by the south coast. But I thought we played well. And that's really the style. I'm glad you mentioned the press as well, the high press, because that is something that, Iriola is doing a lot of. That's how he was so successful at Rayo Vallecano.
Yeah.
We didn't think that the players would be able to play that style. We thought that the players, being realistic, players are at Bournemouth for a reason. Dominic Solanke's at Bournemouth for a reason. And the reason being is, he has got that raw talent, but there's something missing in his game. And that's what we've always done, is we've picked these players up who, probably not the finished article, put them all together and built a team, I didn't think we could play the press, but Iriola's found the solution, and I was completely wrong. I made the stupid statement of saying, "Oh yeah, I think because of the Leeds contingent we have here, Jesse Marsh might be able to get some results." Yeah, Jesse Marsh would be able to get some results.
Craig, I'll tell you now, that's not a good shout.
No, I know it is. I know it is. I thought it was the reason why I said it was because we were desperate for 3 points.
Right.
I honestly felt at that time, after that Everton game, I thought that we were going down. Now, and we're only talking two months later, because we haven't really played this month at all. 2 months later, we're talking about Europe, and Iriola should have been manager of the month. What he's done is turn it around. The Aston Villa game, for example, Aston Villa, were their performance against both Manchester City and Arsenal, after that match was outstanding. And to be honest, they played well when they come down here, but we matched them. And we are playing from some of the most terrible football that I've seen and some of the most clumsy football at the back, at the start of the season against, the likes of Arsenal, against Everton, against Brighton, against Wolves. We're playing some of the best football that I've seen us play, and it's a remarkable turnaround. It's not it's not just a slight turnaround in fortunes. It is a complete polar opposite.
Well, Craig, that's going to help me lead off to a question I have for both Paddy and Mo. And Mo, I'll come to you first. Speaking of polar opposites, when we last faced Bournemouth away last season, obviously it was a very different looking season for us. We came off the back of a wonderful win against United, but we ended up losing, of course, to Bournemouth. Just sort of reflecting on how we are and where we are this season comparatively, are you surprised by it? Is this what you expected this season? And sort of what are your thoughts going into this Bournemouth game, contrasting to where your thoughts were at last season?
Yeah, Craig's talking about a great turnaround for Bournemouth. I think it's been just as good as a turnaround for us. I know we obviously have been able to spend quite a bit of money and get new players in, but I think when you look at the end of that Wolves game or the Bournemouth game last season, and just how much pressure was on Jurgen and some of the other players, and you look at where we are now, top of the league and in all the other competitions. I mean, nobody expected us to be this far into the rebuild this quickly. Anyway, I mean, we saw everybody throw around the terms, Liverpool 2.0 and Liverpool reinvented. I know that's all the terms the journalists love to use now in terms to describe how we've turned around. But to be this far in a rebuild is absolutely incredible. And it's been a rebuild that's been coming. It's almost been a 2-year, 2-tier process in the sense that obviously I feel like we rebuild the attack probably a year and a half ago when we brought in Jota first, and Diaz, then Gakpo, and then Nunes. So that the attack has been slowly rebuilding us over numerous years. But rebuilding that midfield within one season, specifically has been what's almost charged us quickly in terms of turning it around, and that's really why we are where we are now. Because, like I said, our offensive options were never in doubt. We have five great attackers and 5 great attackers with incredible ceilings. However, it was really the midfield that was in front of the defense that was almost holding us back a bit, and being able to rebuild that also credit to players like Gomez and Van Dijk who've been able to find their form again. Everything is almost oiled perfectly. If we're talking about a cogs in machine, everything's working properly now, and because everything's working properly now, and Klopp has got and Klopp has got his confidence back, and everything seems to be working. And when everything seems to be working, you produce results and you produce great performances like we have so far this season. But I still think our away performances, specifically against lower sides, are still slightly an issue. Not in the sense that we're playing horribly, we can't get results, because we have got results against oppositions away. It's just more so that how quickly can we get into games, or how quickly can we ride out pressure? I even feel like games like Burnley and Sheffield, where at the end of it was quite comfortable, but even there was moments and spells in the games where you think, are we actually going to win it? Can we hold on? And both games ended with a second goal right in the dying minute. So I feel like Bournemouth will be a similar challenge, in the sense that we're going to have players who are really, really confident. And ultimately, when you have players who are really confident, and managers believe in these players like Bournemouth do have right now, even if we're winning 1-0 and it's the 60th, 70th, 80th minute, they're always going to wait for that one moment. And because they possess individual quality, look at Solanke and Alex Scott and certain players who can give that moment's players, it means that way we can always be in trouble. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm confident that I think we will come out with a result like we have in previous away games, but I still think it's going to be one of those tough games again, where can we ride out the pressure? So we'll see.
Yeah, 100%. I will say one player always turns up against us. Is it Philip Billing in your midfield?
Yes, Philip Billing, yes.
Every time he plays against us, he just turns into sort of this prime player out of nowhere, and it drives me insane, because he puts a 6 out of 10 in the following week. Paddy, I put the same question to you, mate. If you look at where we are, last season to this season, leading up to that Bournemouth game, are we exceeding your expectations? Do you feel that, because like Mo said, this is Liverpool 2.0 in its first year, in its birth year, and we are ahead of schedule in a lot of ways. And certainly in my eyes, we're ahead of schedule, and with that comes a certain amount of pressure in terms of these young lads aren't used to being in certain circumstances. So just what are your thoughts leading up to the Bournemouth game, and where the season may go?
Yeah, to be honest, I have this conversation with my boss in work all the time. I think Liverpool are probably a year and a half ahead of schedule. If I'm being totally honest, I think we all headed into this season really thinking, okay, we've signed a few very good players. It's going to take a bit of time for them to gel, etc., etc. I disagree to a certain point to what Mo said. I don't think we have played particularly well this season in long spells anyway. You'll have spells in games where you think, okay, this looks half decent. Fulham's the prime example. We were dreadful for the first half, and we turned it on around 60. Should have went 2-0 down before that. But they've got this knack, what we had a couple of seasons ago, of just getting results, which at the end of the day is the most important thing. But yeah, we are in a position where no one really expected it. I think if looking at the season before it started, everyone would have, said, okay, win the Europa League, because regardless of what happened during the season, we were going to be favourites for that anyway. And get back in the top 4. I think that was the minimum expectation. But you look at the way things are going. Obviously, City are starting to come to the party a little bit with De Bruyne, and he's just a special player. But at the end of the day, they've got to match us. It's not the other way around. We win our games, we win the league. If it was that easy, I'm sure.
You made it sound so easy. You just got to win games, and the league's on.
Just got to win your games. But even the League Cup, touch wood, we should be getting to the final of that. The Europa League, I honestly don't see anyone really stopping us. Even the teams that dropped out from the Champions League, I don't think will pose too much of a threat. That might come back to bite me, but on paper, Liverpool should be wiping the floor with all of them.
I'm just making a time count now, so it's 19 minutes in to circle back and just snip that moment for a couple of weeks' time. But
yeah, of course. When we get, I don't even know when the draw is, to be honest. But looking back to last season's game against Bournemouth, it was very much one of them where obviously I haven't watched it back too many times because at the end of the day we were awful. But on another day, similar to what Craig was saying before about the game in November, the result could have been totally different. Van Dijk has a header headed off the line. Mo Salah misses a penalty. So if these both go in, it's a win for Liverpool. But alas, we didn't deserve any out of the game. And to be fair, as Craig was saying, I've been very, very impressed by what Bournemouth have done this season. I had them to go down, I think, at the start of the campaign, but they've had this habit of playing really well against some really good teams and getting results. And the thing that worries me is Liverpool lack bodies at the minute. Trent won't be there. It looks as though Szoboszlai won't be there either, judging by the fact he weren't in the training photos. Obviously, Robbo, Tsimikas, Thiago, Bajcetic, they're all weeks away. They're all weeks away. So that's my big issue. Salah's obviously away. Endo's away. To be honest, the team that we play actually won't be too dissimilar from the League Cup game.
No.
Which doesn't fill me with a lot of confidence. Obviously, Ali will be in goal. Which is...
Well, Paddy, we'll come on to that now because I get Craig's opinion on that. So when you're coming up against us here, you're not coming up against the Liverpool team that you probably know. We have been ripped apart in terms of injuries and players going away for tournaments. So does that fill you with confidence, or do you still feel like this is going to be one of those games that it's obviously you can't call it, but it's not going to be easy pickings by any means. But what are your thoughts going into it? Do you feel like this could be a real opportunity for 3 points?
I think with the injuries and also the African Cup of Nations, not having Mo Salah coming up against us is a real key thing for us. I think we've got such a good chance. Throwing the question back out to you guys, because one thing that I do think is, of course, Liverpool could again get a quadruple. That is on the table. So of course you got the Carabao Cup, which I agree with you should get to the final. The FA Cup. You've got, of course, the Europa League, and then, of course, the Premier League. Now, the problem is Manchester City have got a big squad, and they've got a squad that is probably in depth. And no offense, has probably got a lot more quality than the Liverpool squad in depth because they've spent so much money. They've spent ridiculous amounts of money. I think it's a case of, if push comes to shove, the Premier League has to be Liverpool's priority to win that again. And I think, hand on heart, I think Liverpool can win the Premier League. But I think that Liverpool only win the Premier League if, say, for example, they rest players in the Europa League and risk, going out of that at an early stage. Because that fixture pile up at the end of the season, when you're fighting for every single point to get yourself over the line, win that second Premier League title, I think is going to be key. And it shows already with the amount of injuries you do have. We are coming up against a very good side. Don't get me wrong, a Liverpool second string side is still a very good side. But is it the level of quality of Manchester City, for example, because of how many players and how much strength in depth they have? Because, well, let's be honest, they bought the league. That's why they've got 115 charges going against them. But hopefully you can see my point of maybe something has to give, to win, what is the bread and butter for Liverpool, which is, the Premier League title.
Well, Craig, I'll put this to Mo and Paddy in a minute, but I'll just put my 2 cents in. I think for me, whenever you're in, just as a competitive person myself, the players can't be thinking putting one to one side, one to the other. They'll go gun-ho till we're knocked out. But the way Klopp is, I watched a really interesting piece on Sky Sports today. In terms of players used this season, we've used the least amount of players. However, we've rotated the most within that least amount of players used within the squad. So we've had a really good rotation, which is basically, it's allowing those players those rest. that rest. I was surprised with the FA Cup, League Cup. I don't know if you've seen that, Craig, in terms of the lineups between Arsenal and Fulham within a 3-day period, both as strong as really as we could go. I expect when players come back fit, because Paddy mentioned before about the injuries we have and people being a couple of weeks away. Thankfully, everyone seems to be 4 weeks away max, which is a bit crazy. Even Thiago, who we haven't seen for a year, which is not a hyperbole. We genuinely haven't seen him for a year. So that's obviously good for us. So if we are able to get our squad back fully fit, for me personally, I feel even if we rotate the side, unless we get very unlucky with an FA Cup draw, very unlucky with a Europa League draw, in terms of even unlucky just in terms of timing between whatever fixtures it could be between. I know there's a moment where I think we could have one where it's Everton Europa League quarter and then another difficult fixture following, which obviously is not ideal. So if we get unfortunate there, yes, don't worry, that of course that can affect us. But I personally believe that as of right now, while everything's on the table, you've got to go for everything. The way as well. I must admit, I watched that Newcastle game and it was very ominous, to say the least. When De Bruyne came on, it's like watching Voldemort or Darth Vader just emerge out of nowhere. A bit of a nerdy reference, but there you go. Mo, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of how we balance all the competitions and specifically Europa League, I think it'll be the same approach to Klopp, where he'll look at. I feel like what Klopp does is he tends to look at the week ahead and the schedules ahead, and irrespective of whether it's a Premier League game or a European game or a domestic competition, he'll rotate regardless. And I feel like we've seen that in the past. Like, I don't know if you guys remember during the quadruple charge, where the game against Southampton, for example, away 21-22, where he put him to when Minamino played and a few others played, where he'll rotate if he has to rotate, and he will do it with this Premier League game. He did it in the Fulham game the season before, and so I think it'll be a similar approach right now, where game by game he'll manage each game as it comes. And so, if for example the game against Chelsea, for example, on the 31st. If for example one player's got a niggle or one player, he'll rotate that player out and I think that's what's worked for us in terms of keeping our players fit. We do have injury issues, but I feel like Klopp can manage big squads well, or even if the squad isn't full of quality, he can still manage 20, 22, 23, 24 players, and he's done in the past. So I don't think it'll be a sense where he'll put all these eggs. He'll start to play his first 11 in the Premier League and then rotate for the Europa League. I think it will literally just be a game by game situation, and I think that's what's worked for us, and I think that's what he'll keep doing for sure. So we'll see.
Paddy?
I think, to be honest, there's a slight advantage this time around compared to a couple of seasons ago, where we're in a lesser competition in Europe. There's not a situation where you're going to be coming up against the Inter Milan, the Benfica. As much as they're, not the top end of Champions League football, it's still better than probably what we'll be coming up against. I think there's a luxury in the fact that we won't be coming up against these better teams where you can rotate your players on a Thursday. And to be honest, Liverpool's second string side, which we'll probably see on Sunday to a certain degree, I think is good enough to beat most of these teams in the Europa League anyway. But we've been here before with everything on the table. Granted, it's not the holy grail of quadruples. I still think it's very early. It could be over by this time next week if Fulham turn up and Liverpool don't, like they did the other week. But I think there's every chance we go all the way in Europe and in one of the cups. It's the Premier League that is stopping me from getting overly excited, unless we beat City. But I've said from the start of the season, it makes a change where, touch wood, we're still in the title race by March, and we've got them coming to Anfield instead of us having to go to the Etihad and win. They beat us once at Anfield in the league in, I think, God knows, 25 years. We beat them at home in 1 in 9. 2015 was the last time. So the away side usually doesn't fare well in those games between Liverpool and City. That's a big game. I think that's the 8th of March off the top of my head. But listen, Liverpool have a tendency to be a bit slow after a break, and Bournemouth will obviously have the tails up, considering what we spoke about. They played well, players in form, etc., etc. So Liverpool have to be on it on Sunday. We can't afford another 4:30 Luton away performance where you create so many chances to win 2 games, you don't even win the one. So I think that's where we've got to start on Sunday.
Yeah, Paddy, listen, you make a good point. We're talking about 30 quadruple by getting the Europa League in there, but then it could all go awry very, very quickly. We have Norwich at home in the FA Cup, and then Europa League we have to see, but we have Bournemouth next in the league, which is why Craig's here. Now, Craig, on Sunday, there's a hypothetical scenario where if we lose, you'll have the entire Liverpool Twitter melting down and believing that the club should be sold and that every player should be sold. So for you, obviously you'll take immense joy in that, I'm sure. What is it that Bournemouth can do on Sunday to walk away with 3 points? What do you think your biggest assets are facing Liverpool on Sunday that we need to be wary for as a team?
I think what we will do is we'll do the high press. We'll play that like we did against Manchester United. We'll be fighting for every ball. If you watch back that Manchester United game, the first goal from Solanke, to be fair, Solanke, fantastic finish, but the hard work was all done by Lewis Cook. He had no right to win that ball. He had no right to win that ball and get the ball across. And I think that's one thing that has, really, he's a bit of an unsung hero, really, Lewis Cook, because he's had so many injuries. He is a real battler. So we'll be battling for every ball. We'll be battling for every single ball. Defensively, we've got a lot stronger. So I would imagine it will be more of the same. The big question for me is what happens with the back line. So Milos Kerkez looks like he's probably going to be out. Max Aarons, hopefully, I believe that might be a late fitness test. Adam Smith can move over to the left-hand side. I'm not even sure if Dongo Matara has actually gone to the African Cup of Nations because I believe he was in the Burkina Faso squad, but there's been some rumours about that he's still here. So I'm not sure what's actually happened there.
It could be on a situation, Craig. He might be wanting to play on Sunday before he flies off Monday morning. So you never know.
Yeah, very, very
then you
possible.
get left halfway through.
But, yeah, very possible. But I think, it's going to be more of the same from us. I think the intensity is going to be there. The players are going to be fresh. It would be nice if Kerkez was, available, but he's probably not going to be. And I think Phil Billing and Dominic Solanke are going to be linking up. And Solanke's got something actually really to prove because, of course, there's lots of clubs that are after him. I believe that we'll keep hold of Solanke, and I have to believe that he's not one of those players that is going to stamp his feet. Definitely not. I think he's going to make him work harder because I think he'll want that move in the long run, be it to Arsenal, be it to West Ham, be it to a side who are going to probably be in European football. Ours is probably an outside shout. It'd be amazing if we got there. But, if Arsenal or Liverpool or Chelsea are offering Champions League football, he's not going to turn that down. He's not going to turn that down.
Do you think he can make that leap? Like, listen, obviously, I know his stats this season. And, Paddy, Mo, and I watched Solanke for a season at Liverpool where, we appreciate the hard work he put in. But obviously, it wasn't the level we needed at the time. We ended up selling him for, I think it was 25 to you guys. It took a while for him to hit the ground running for you. Championship, I know, performed quite well. I know Premier League, he's done okay. And this season, obviously, he's been fantastic. But do you think this is best example I can say, and I don't mean this as any sort of offence, but a Wilfred Bonny situation where he performs very well at the club at that level, but when he makes the move, he can't just to that height? Because obviously, I use Bonny as the example because when Bonny went to City, it never clicked.
Yeah.
Do you think it's one of those where he can make that step up, or is this a purple patch for him, and you guys should look to potentially cash in while the fruit is ripe, kind of situation?
Well, he could get an injury tomorrow and be out for the rest of the season. It's always a risk. It's always a risk. I think that he is becoming an all-round player now. And he does so much more than just. I think what the danger is for Dominic Solanke is he'll be judged on how many goals he scores, whereas he does so much more. In some seasons he's only score. He's not well. We thought that he was going to struggle hitting 10. But it's what he creates for the other players. He's not a greedy forward. He'll pass to Billing, he'll find room for Justin Kluivert. Jefferson Lerma, when he was here, had a fantastic connection with him. I think the championship seasons, the 2 years that we had in the championship, because if you remember Dominic Solanke before we was relegated, he had both Josh King and Callum Wilson in front of him, and he couldn't get a sniff. And when he come on, we thought, there's something there, but is he going to make it? I think the 2 seasons in the championship actually really helped him. I think they did him the world of good, and has actually turned him into the player that he is today. So I think that he'll be an asset for whoever he goes to, but it's whether or not he's judged on how many goals he scores. If he's judged on that, some people might say, well, he's a flop, but you have to look at what else he does. And
well, Craig, I'd like to use that as a segue because we have a striker that's very similar in description to what you've just said there.
Yeah.
And I won't let the lads guess they know who I'm on about, and that's Darwin Núñez. So, Darwin Núñez, come Sunday, I just want to put this quick one to Paddy and Mo. We've seen him play on the left against Fulham. He played well on the left, well against Arsenal. Just wanted your initial thoughts. Would that be something you'd want to see on Sunday? Yes or no? Just expand if you want to expand. I'm just curious on the thought.
Paddy? Mo. Okay.
Either or.
Mo.
Deflecting, Paddy.
I feel like with Núñez, he like similar to what Craig said about Solanke being all round. I think Núñez is quite similar to that also, because I don't watch Núñez and think of him as a greedy player or somebody that's quite selfish in the way he plays. I would describe him quite similar to Solanke. They're both not players who are creative geniuses who drop in deep and play amazing balls and break lines. They're players who, once they're in that final third area, if the chance is there to shoot, they'll look to pass. And I feel like, and that's why Núñez has double-digit assists this season already. I feel like somebody that he's quite a magnet in terms of the way he plays forward-wise. So I'll say yes to that as well. Yeah, for sure.
You want to see him on the left?
Only because I do really, really rate Jota at centre forward area, and I feel like Jota is just an incredible poacher. I feel like Jota is almost the polar opposite of Núñez. They both can chip in creatively. Jota can create things also, and he can slip in a pass. But the thing about Jota is that if he can find a tight angle, he'll shoot straight away. Somebody that's so good in the box, whether that's in the air or on the floor. Whereas Núñez, I feel like he will benefit from having a lot of space out wide and being able to, like he did against Bournemouth in the League Cup, cut inside and shoot, or be able to drive into the byline and find a pass. I feel like Núñez can benefit from that. Whereas Jota, I've never been a fan of Jota on the left, to be honest. I've always found him to be his best when he's directly in a centre forward position. So I'm going to say yes to Núñez being on the left for sure.
I agree with you there, Mo. Paddy, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, Núñez is one of them where I do think he's more dangerous on the left-hand side. And I agree with Mo. Jota, but trying to watch Diogo Jota play football on the left is not the one. Sure. I think outside of Mo Salah, I think he's Liverpool's best finisher by a country mile, to be honest. The only thing with Jota is you need the service to be good. Otherwise, you can play a game with 10 men quite easily. He does pop up with these, unbelievable finishes because that's why he's there, and he's got a lot of credit in the bank for what he's done for Liverpool so far. He scored a lot of important goals, and that's because he plays down the middle. I don't think he's fast enough to play on the left, whereas Núñez is one of them where when he plays, regardless of how many chances he misses, how many chances he creates, etc., Liverpool play better and Liverpool create more with Núñez on the pitch because defenders are terrified of him. Because there will be one game where it all clicks. Goalkeepers can't keep making these saves forever. Obviously, he misses big chances. I understand that. But the one against Fulham, when it goes across the box, Leno just throws himself at it, saves it. Newcastle, Dubravka's the same. There's going to be one time when that stops happening. He gets himself in all the right positions all the time. His movement's great. We just need the luck to start turning a little bit. So I think for the time being, with as we said before, with what could be on the horizon, I think you need to get him where he's most dangerous. Stick him on the left, put Jota down the middle, and put Diaz on the right for the time being while Salah's away. Because against Arsenal, he caused absolute havoc, and he looks a bit more of a definitely more of a threat down the right hand side than he has done the left for since he come back from injury. To be honest.
No, listen, I'm in agreement with both of you there. Now, I would like to wrap this up by going to all three of you and just having you guys give me a play-by-play of how you think the game's going to go, and then end it with the score prediction. Craig, with you being the guest, I'm going to go last with you. All right? I want you
fair enough.
Take in the Liverpool opinions, hear the bias, and then just tell us we're wrong. That's what we're looking for. So, Paddy, going first, mate. Let me hear your play-by-play, and then your score prediction at the end of it.
I think it's going to be one of them when Liverpool start slow, because that's just what we do. It wouldn't shock me if Bournemouth went ahead, as much as that would be less than ideal. But I do think Liverpool will win the game. To be honest, I think I'm just going to go with 2-1 again. I think that would be more than satisfactory for me.
Goal scorers, if you had to.
Anyone. You know what? I'll go with Nunez and Jota.
Fair enough. Mo?
Yeah, I agree with Paddy in terms of I feel like it's going to definitely be a slow start. I feel like the match conditions, 4:30, Sky Sports, everybody watching us. I feel like it tends to be those games where you tend to struggle and suddenly all our players look a bit sluggish. So I definitely think Bournemouth will score just because I feel like they'll catch us. I mean, it could be similar to like a Burnley and a Sheffield game where we start slow but somehow we don't concede. And Alisson pulls with a great save, but I feel like Bournemouth will definitely have chances, and so I think we will concede just because they've got Solanke up front and great individual quality within their players. So I'm gonna go 3-1 Liverpool. I definitely think Jota will score. Definitely, since I feel like now that Salah's gone, I feel like the responsibility to be lethal and be a poacher falls on Jota now, and I definitely think he'll step up to that. So I'm gonna go Jota 2 goals, and I feel like a goal from midfield somewhere, but I'm not quite sure. But yeah, I can't. I just, for some reason, I have no confidence in Diaz and Nunez scoring a goal. Not because I definitely think they won't score, or because they're not good finish. Just because it tends to be hit and miss sometimes with Diaz in terms of whether he had, because one game he will have an excellent finish, a score, excellent goal, and then one game he will miss quite a few chances, and Nunez is quite similar to that. So I'm just gonna say a goal from midfield. I don't know who, and I'm gonna say a Jota brace. We'll see. 3-1.
I'll have mine nice and quick. I think you guys were dead on right. I think we're going to start sluggish. I think the Bournemouth press is going to be very sharp. I think Solanke's going to score. It's going to be a devastating moment when he scores, but I have already put a bet on that game. I'm ahead of you both. I've also got Philip Billing to get a yellow card. Seems consistent. I think it'll be, again, I think it's going to be 2-1 as well. I think you guys will score first. I think it'll be a second half reaction. And I'm going for Harvey Elliott, Diego Jota to score for us. I feel like Harvey Elliott might be overdue a goal. Craig, tell us we're all wrong. What do you reckon?
Actually, I've just had a little look at the comments, and somebody called George has actually made a really good point that I completely overlooked, and that is Marcos Senesi is actually injured. It feels like it's been a season ago since we last played. So yeah, I completely forgot about that. Of course, just after Christmas, he got sent off against Spurs. So I think it's going to be a tough game for us. As you would always expect. Personally, I think that you might take the lead. So I'm going to go with Darwin Núñez take the lead. I reckon it probably be Zabania and Metham at the back. And Metham, I don't think is really, of the standard in the Premier League. Great guy. I must say model professional, but I just don't think he's up to the level. So I wouldn't be surprised if he makes a mistake. However, going forwards, we're going to have that high press. We're going to be, good on the attack. I think Justin Kluivert will score just before half-time, so go in equal. And I think Dominic Solanke is going to do something to prove himself. And I'm going to go with a 2-1 win for the Cherries. I'm not going to bet against my own team, am I, though? Come on. I'm not going to bet against my own team.
Hey, listen, I've always bet for someone to score against us. I bet we win, but I always look to predict the goal scorer. Listen, thank you so much for coming on, Craig. It's been a pleasure.
No problem. My pleasure.
If we do see you again in the FA Cup at some point, I'm sure we'll get you back on, mate. But Paddy, it's down to you to close this one up. Thank you guys for joining. Thank you guys for all the comments. And yeah, we'll see you guys next time.
Peace.
Yeah. Need you to close this one, Paddy.